the Biofriendly Podcast. It's the Biofriendly Podcast.
My girl wants to party all the time, party all the time, party all the time. Hey, my girl. Oh, that's an Al Yankovic polka, too.
Yeah.
My girl wants to party all the time, party all the time, party all the time.
Because I wouldn't say that
party
song.
Party all the time. She parties all the time. Say you, say me. Say it together. That's the way it should be.
He's a big fan.
I love him.
He's a big fan.
I love him.
The Eddie Murphy Party All the Time, I mean, it might have been hit at the time. I think we were too young for when it was like on the radio. Right?
You know, I think my older brother's a little older than your older brother.
Yeah, just
right?
by a smidge.
Mm-hmm. That song was definitely playing in the car and around. Not like on the. He didn't get a cassette or anything.
Yeah,
Let's
it's just on the radio.
Crazy.
On the radio.
But
maybe.
that radio station that my brother was forcing my mom to play certainly had My Girl Wants to.
Eddie Murphy.
Edward T. Murphy.
Edward T. Theodore.
I wonder what his middle name, because he's the kind of person who'd be great. I feel like his name sounded all the way out.
Yeah.
With the middle
Edward
initial.
Murphy? Yeah, Edward James Murphy.
I mean, it would make him sound like he was a literary genius.
It would have changed his career, I think,
Yeah.
not from the comedic genius he is.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Yes.
It's Christmas season.
It sure is. We are nearing.
Doesn't Ronnie have a beautiful voice?
She does. It's very
I'm so
sweet.
glad that the world got a little sneak. She let us have that. She let the world. Very rarely will Ronnie, let the world see how beautiful her voice is. But
I know.
There it was.
Last week she was standing up at the microphone, leaving for school, and she was pretending to be Cher. So it was great.
I wasn't pretending. I'm just kidding.
I wasn't pretending.
I'm kidding.
I am
kidding.
Cher. I am Cher.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's right, folks. For those of you who hadn't figured it out already by this point in the month, we have to bank a lot of episodes during the holidays.
Bank, baby.
So we record them all the same way. We have a week where we're just episode after episode after episode after episode.
Thankfully, I figured out in my head after our last one which order we're in, so I can at least refer to things in the past, present, and future, like the Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
we can Christmas Carol this thing. Christmas Carol, that's you.
I'm Christmas Carol.
You're Christmas Carol. Have you ever been
Noel Christopher Carol?
That's right. You have the
Christmas Carol.
He has the most Christmassy name I've ever heard in my life.
I really do.
You do. Have you ever been visited by the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future?
All three.
Oh yeah,
all three.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, the interesting thing for me is they don't visit to teach me lessons. They just visit to have drinks and hang out.
Just to hang out.
Yeah.
Just to hang out.
To kick it.
Oh wow.
Ghost of Christmas Future is surprisingly chill.
Yeah.
Like really cool.
Really cool guy.
Really cool.
Well, if you're not a Scrooge.
Yeah.
Because you're more like an Ebenezer dude.
Ebenezer dude. The dude.
Ebenezer dude. And they're like, well, we're like,
I'm just a dude.
I'm just a dude.
Man.
So they don't come to scare you or like inspire, because they're like, this guy gets Christmas.
This guy, I get it. I definitely get Christmas.
So you get some quality.
I actually understand. I understand the whole bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm very lucky that way.
Yeah, you
I don't know
are.
if it's the name or what it is, but I'm very fortunate in that Christmas. For the first moment I heard about it,
Yeah. You were like, I get this.
I got the
Yeah.
concept. I was in on it.
Yeah.
And I've been there ever since.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I still hear the bell.
You do? Yes, of course.
When it rings.
And do you still hear the bell? Oh, wait. We haven't shown you this film yet. The Polar Express.
The Polar
I still
Express.
hear the bell.
Yeah.
My children ask me, my youngest, he said, do you still hear the bell? And I said, of course I do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Still a child at heart.
So, for reference, for those people looking as confused as Veronica
is right now. Polar Express, classic.
In Polar Express, and I'm going to go ahead and I don't think it spoils because the movie isn't really a spoiled movie.
It's not a spoiler movie. It's a wonderful holiday film for all ages.
Right. Santa Claus gives a gift of Christmas to the lead boy in the movie. Mm-hmm. And he can ask for anything he wants. And what he asks for is a bell that fell off of a sleigh. Because he wanted the Christmas bell.
Yeah.
And so the first gift of Christmas was Santa giving this boy a bell. Mm-hmm. Now the thing about this bell is that you can only hear it ring if you believe in Christmas, if you believe in Santa, you believe in the spirit of Christmas and in Santa, right? Mm-hmm. And if you believe in that, then you can hear the bell ring. And at first, the boy cannot hear the bells ring at all, and he's confusing him. And then finally, he realizes he has to believe. And then when he believes, suddenly there's just a flush of noise as all of the bells are now ringing in his ear. And so he wants one. Mm-hmm. So he gets this bell as a gift of Christmas. And then if you can hear the bell, you know that you still believe. And if you can't hear the bell, his parents can't hear the bell.
His parents can't hear it.
His parents stop believing.
Yeah.
So then you've lost it. You've lost the spirit of Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful, beautiful story.
It
That
is,
is beautiful.
isn't it? We're lucky because a couple years ago we went to this cool event. There was a Polar Express train ride, and they had the bells, and they had the red ribbon, and we have them. And so now during the holidays, there's some bells ringing around my house for sure because we have them.
And you can hear
ones
them
from
still.
Yeah, can still hear them loud and clear because I
Stop
still believe.
ringing.
Stop, yeah.
Kids.
I do believe, so please, boys, stop ringing the bell. It's Saturday morning and Daddy needs to sleep. It's not even Christmas, okay? I'm trying to watch the show.
Daddy's trying to process some whiskey here,
Yeah,
kids.
right. Daddy's trying to unwind after the workday. Can you please tone down the Christmas spirit so I can imbibe some Christmas spirits? You know what I'm saying? No, this is such a great setup for today's episode, though. This is like the perfect setup.
Yeah.
Because Noel and I had a conversation. We had a heart-to-heart, a man-to-man, a look-to-look,
A look to look for sure. We had
a high-five to high-five.
We definitely high-fived. We touched butts.
And we said, yes. And we said, it's the holiday season. We've been on the air for many, many years. And we were like, I think it's time to do a little deep dive into the history, the origin of Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And we were like, I know that's not necessarily like quote unquote green or environmental, but it's sustainable for our hearts.
It is sustainable. It's it's the holidays, and I think there's a sustainable reason that you have the holidays.
Yes.
Right? I think that there's a social aspect to why you have an event like this.
Yeah.
The importance of an event like this and why people get so much behind it.
Yeah.
Which then leads me to a very important point that I want to bring up to the world.
Yeah.
Which is Santa Claus is real.
Yes.
And we'll prove it to you today.
Yeah, we'll prove it to you today. Santa Claus is real. And so maybe by the end of this episode, all you grown-ups and non-believers out there will be shaking that bell.
Maybe
You'll
you can
hear it
the
again
bell.
for the first time.
I hope you hear the bell.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the goal. That's it.
So we're going to dig in a little bit. Christmas spirit obviously probably has been around since the world started. I would imagine that there is this spirit of giving that has always been there. But we can link the origin of when Santa first walked the earth all the way back to the 4th century.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. 4th century.
4th century for Santa.
And
the spirit...
I mean, that
even
goes
earlier.
Even earlier.
You go into Saturnalia with the Greeks back in pre-Jesus.
Yeah.
It was now back before Jesus came around.
Yes.
It was a Festivus. It was this Greek event called Saturnalia, which was like a celebration of the end of winter.
Yeah.
But had the same activities.
Yeah.
The same, there was lights, there was parties, there was gift giving, there was love, there was brotherly, sisterly being with each other, caring about each other. That was already established.
Yes.
This spirit has established even before that. And then it grew from there.
There's something about the winter time that even, thousands of years ago, they picked up on it being, the winter solstice, this changing over, this end of one thing going into the next, it getting colder, then getting warmer again. So they'd landed upon that. And so the spirit was there. It existed.
Well, and if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? The sun, right? The source of life.
Right.
The source of energy for this planet. For everything that grows, we get our energy from the sun.
Yeah.
So that sun goes away for a longer and longer period of time at winter.
Yeah.
From, June 22nd or 1st, I always forget which one it is.
Yeah.
21st, thank you.
Yeah.
From June 21st all the way until December 21st, the night gets longer. Mm-hmm. It gets colder. Mm-hmm. The sun is starting to disappear.
Yeah.
So if you think of things, if you don't have an understanding of how the Earth is shaped, it turning on its own axis, the angle that it sits on against the sun and spinning around the sun, right?
Yeah.
And
you don't have that knowledge.
Yes.
You're just looking around and going, things are getting weird
The
around
sun
here.
is disappearing.
Yeah.
Why is the sun disappearing?
Yeah.
We need this thing. It's getting cold. Oh, God, it's freezing. Oh, God, there's no food. Oh, God, this is terrible.
Yeah.
What do we do? Well, the moment that the sun starts coming back
Yeah.
and starts having, like, it's coming back.
Yeah.
Oh, the sun's coming back.
Yeah.
The days are longer. Oh, this is a relief.
Yeah.
This is an incredible, and if you are not sure how it's happening or why, it's an incredibly thankful, exciting, amazing thing to know that the time has come that the sun is returning.
Yeah.
And that the world will be warm again.
Yeah.
And that the crops will grow again. And that we can live.
Yeah.
And so that's the essence of this holiday season, is celebrating the fact that we are getting our sun back, that it is another year. Another year will go and we will survive and we'll make it. We'll be okay.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool because as I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so I was raised in the Methodist church. So I was raised with the tradition of Jesus and the birth of Jesus, and that being December 25th. And that was our, what we were celebrating on Christmas. And I think it wasn't until I was much older that I learned about the pagan holiday being kind of like imported in and being shared with it. And then this being, the whole thing of Santa Claus coming from this, Dutch bishop from back in this time. So I actually think the impulse is like, oh, it's just this, pool of all these things over time. But I actually think it's a remarkable thing that humanity together said, hey, let's just bring all these things together and celebrate, because you can't escape that there's something kind of magical about this time of year.
We all see it's important. Everywhere you go, you see that it's important and everybody wants to celebrate it. So it became this thing.
And so the idea of getting up on Christmas morning and all the traditions that we have of the stocking, the reindeer, the red suit, all these this is like information that has been leaked to us by poets and writers and songwriters, and they've gotten this information and they've shared it with us over time, and so now we have a full-fledged picture. But I'm going to make a promise here in the podcast today: we are not going to out Santa's secrets any more than what's already out there today.
Yeah, there's some stuff that exists about Santa that is yet to be discovered.
Yeah,
yet to be known.
Yeah, and we got to keep the wraps on that because in order for the magic to continue, we have to know. Okay, there's some things that we know about jolly old Saint Nick, but there's a lot of things we don't know, and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to break any groundbreaking news today. Just going to be a lot of facts.
It's going to be a lot of facts breaking down what we do know.
Yeah.
What you know about first the human form.
The human form
of Santa.
When the Christmas spirit was, being developed, and there was a man on earth who was doing this thing that then would become the legend that we celebrate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
100%. And just to your point, these poets, these musicians, these authors, these people who have given us these leaks. In this context, I think we think of them more as reporters.
Yeah, like reporters.
Yeah.
A lot of people say like, oh, this person drew a cartoon rendering of something, but they're the feet on the ground going, okay, how do we get to the bottom of this mystery? And they're sharing it with the world.
And it's still happening to this day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we didn't know about the human elf.
No.
That lived up in the North Pole until very recently. That was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, that was like a big piece of information to share with all of us, that there would be a human child that had been accidentally scooped up and brought up to the North Pole and raised. And the whole time this child's growing up, he's thinking, I'm different. I'm not like everybody else. And then once that human child figured out I'm not an elf, he had to come back to New York and figure out, where did I come from?
Yeah, meet his family, do the whole bit. It's a great story. I think that the movie they made that it was based on was really funny and really enjoyable. So for those of you who haven't seen it, it's called Elf.
It's called Elf, and it's wonderful, and it'll make you laugh out loud, but it also is very touching.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Yeah, this is stuff that honestly these reporters are giving us and going, this is things that now that we have movies and the internet and all this technology, we can share and learn a little bit more, but they're still keeping it close to the vest. That's why you see so many different variations of Santa Claus in movies, in parades and whatnot, because there's only so much we really truly know, right?
Right.
The guy just knows how to hide. My youngest is determined this year to see him. He said, I will stay up all night. And I said, I got to tell you, Elliot, he's really good. He's so good. Yeah. He has been doing this for centuries. He is so good at not being seen that don't be surprised if you fall asleep, if you don't get a glimpse of him. It's just really hard to catch him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows when you're awake. So the only bummer about staying up all night to catch Santa Claus
hold out.
is he will not show up.
He will not. Yep. That's right. They wrote that song for a reason. Another great reporter. Yeah. But we'll go back to the man that walked on earth. This is the biggest quick summary, but Noel always...
Yeah, we got to know how this begins.
Yeah.
Right?
So St. Nicholas, a 4th century bishop who lived in the ancient Roman town of Myra, which is now Demre in Turkey, was reputed to be neither plump nor jolly, but did earn a long-standing reputation for charity and gift-giving. Okay, so that was really where this story began. This guy was a very generous person, and the famous story is there were these 3 women that were going to go into slavery, and he and the oldest profession in the world.
That's right.
Right. The ladies of the night.
The lady of the night profession.
Lady of the night
against their will.
Against
Just
their will.
at that time, if you didn't have a dowry to get your daughters married off, there were few options for them.
Yeah.
And if you weren't rich enough to allow them to be a spinster, they often ended up, unfortunately, in the oldest profession on earth.
Yeah, so along comes Nicholas, and he helps them avoid this terrible fate, and he does that.
Which apparently is a cute story. So he doesn't... Here's the thing about St. Nicholas, which is so fascinating, and I think it's something that you see to this day from Santa Claus. It is something that he didn't stop doing. Mm-hmm. It is the idea that the gift is a secret. Mm-hmm. That you don't know necessarily who gave you the gift. Yeah. And then was it from St. Nick? Everybody says so. Everybody tells you that St. Nick gave it to him, but he will never admit. Yeah. And that was this true priest from this time never, ever told you that the gift was from him, ever. Yep. Did not matter how much everybody was certain of it. Did not matter that how everybody in that village who knew him somehow would get the perfect gift at the right time to help them out of whatever situation. Mm-hmm. He never took credit ever. It was always secret. Mm-hmm. It was always quietly when the person wasn't noticing. And in this case, literally it was in the middle of the night. Over time, he would drop lumps of gold that was left to the dad. Yeah. So the dad had enough money as a dowry to marry off his daughters, and all 3 daughters were married off and did not have to go into that life.
Yeah, and so this human who's walking earth is just...
Who existed... Yeah. Santa Claus is real. Yeah. This is the 100%, not a joke, not a legend, not something that's imagined. This person existed, was a priest in the Catholic Church, existed, and did these things for real.
Yeah. And so then eventually this person, leaves the world that we know, that we walk around, but is revered because this person clearly had the Christmas spirit in him all along, and now has to go to more of like a supernatural plane of existence where this can be spread around the world. Right. And so people all over Europe are going, this is a saint that we need to celebrate and revere, and he becomes this spirit of giving and charity, and really gets linked to young people, children, helping children because of those girls and saving them. So everybody was like, spirit of giving, but also somebody who tends to and helps children. So this goes on for many hundreds of years. People celebrate. I think the date that is chosen by, I think it's the Dutch, they basically say December 6th. That's when that's
St. Nicholas Day.
That is St. Nicholas Day. That's when we're celebrating him.
Also big in patron saint of Russia as well.
Yeah. It spread all over the place. Everybody was like, St. Nick. Yeah. And there's images.
And remember, to become a saint, you have to have 3 miracles, and you actually get anointed as a saint by the Pope. Yep. And it happened.
Yeah,
Pope did it. This person, the gift giving and the miracles that happened because of that resulted in life, miracles were performed by this person. Yeah. Before he even entered the plane of sainthood.
Yeah. And this is a rough reenactment, but a guy came in there and he's like, Pope, we need to anoint a new saint. He's like, who are we talking about? And he's like, we're talking about saint. And he's like, say no more. Done. He didn't even have to hear anything.
He's just done. 3 miracles. But guy's got 15, 20, 30, 40 miracles.
He's got so many miracles. He's a saint. This guy's a saint.
This guy is in. Done.
The saint.
Done. Anoint him.
Blessed.
Done.
Anoint him.
Forget it.
Forget about it.
And he was in.
He was in. Just
that was
like
a really good analogy. Exactly how it was.
Exactly. A lot of. If you watch the History Channel, they take a lot of that out of it, but it kind of went down that way. Yeah. So.
And there are 2 interesting things about that name. One is that the German translation of the name is Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas.
Right?
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons you say Santa Claus. The other one is say St. Nicholas real fast.
Yeah, St. Nicholas. Sinterklaas. Yeah, Sinterklaas. So that becomes the name of the holiday, the celebration of Sinterklaas on December 6th. And so you're wondering, well, how does it make its way to where we're living right now here in America? Well, Dutch immigrants bring this tradition over here. And so it becomes celebrated here in America, and it becomes big. Everywhere it's just growing and growing, because how can you escape the magic and wonder of this amazing tradition? And then you've got the birth of baby Jesus, you've got the pagan winter solstice and the winter celebration, and we're just like, it all kind of starts coming together. And I couldn't find how it landed specifically we decided to do it on good old baby Jesus's birthday, but I think it just kind of happened
that
there
happened
somewhere.
with the Holy Roman Empire.
Holy Roman Empire. Okay.
The Roman.
They were like, we're going to move it over to a day that everybody's going to get behind.
Yeah, well, so here's the deal, right? The Romans decided that it was time to embrace Christianity as the major religion at the time. So you still had a lot of people who were celebrating the pagan holiday.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah, and they needed a way to get people to sort of enjoy them together. They didn't want to get rid of an important holiday.
Right, you got to be inclusive, right?
Right, exactly. So the birth of Jesus was kind of, because the dates according to the church at that time. And I don't want to get into the date of the birth of Jesus. There are some thoughts that maybe he was born at a different time, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
The observance of it was on the 25th.
Right.
And so they were put together to make that work so that you could have this pagan festival kind of match with the birth of Jesus, and they could have that be one massive event.
Yeah.
It just so happens that it coincides, the luck is good that many years later it was sort of discovered that this, that the St. Nicholas holiday was also in December.
Yeah.
And something that happened on the 6th of December and was also kind of blended its way a little bit later on.
Yeah.
And so it all, as you were saying, combined into one sort of beautiful
day.
Perfect event.
Yeah. And it's funny because when it comes to dates, we're really just kind of guessing here, folks. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because we made the calendar ourselves, and I just recently found out. Well, you probably already knew this. And in October of 1852, I think it is, or whatever, we lost 10 days of the year when they switched the calendar over. They basically deleted 10 days because they were switching from one calendar to the next, and we were on like October 11th. They're like, let's just make it the 21st. Yeah. Because they wanted to keep this. I don't even know what it was for, but I read about it and I was like, we lost 10 days. They just were like deleted.
Yeah. Well, you had to make the
calendars work.
Solstices, the events that actually. So it's this interesting problem. You used to have a lot more agreement between science and religion, right? Where you would try to work things out. Where the scientists are like, look, that day, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
That day there is the shortest day of the year.
Yes, and this is how it works with the sun and the moon, and everything's balanced, so we need to keep that day that day.
So if you want to have your event, you need to know that that's going to be the shortest day of the year, and it's going to keep being the shortest day of the year so long as we follow the calendar this way.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, well, this event has to be on that date because it's always been on that date.
Yeah.
And then so you cut a day here, you move a day there, you switch a calendar there.
And that's what we've done.
Bada bing, bada boom.
And that's what we've done. So when you come back to, we celebrate December 25th as Christmas Day, it's like, well, we just had to basically say a day out loud, and then jolly old Saint Nick was like, cool, I'll just show up whenever you want me to show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was somewhere around there, but we landed on that one, and it seems to work so far.
Yeah.
So, but now we can get into some of the things that have come along the way about Saint Nicholas. But before we get into that, is there anything else I missed about the man himself?
The man himself.
Yeah, on Earth.
Yeah, that's. I think that's a good kind of basis to get ourselves started on. You know, I think we can run from there. We'll come back. I think to him at the end when we're wrapping up the whole understanding of Christmas and the spirit and why he's real.
Yeah, I love it. I brought with me some research. You can take your pick. Ronnie, I want to know your pick on this one. We could either talk about the Christmas stocking. We could talk about the Christmas reindeer. We could talk about Christmas North Pole or Christmas trees.
North Pole.
You want to know how do we know that Santa Claus is living at the North Pole?
All right.
I think that's a very good question.
Good piece of information.
Yeah. St. Nicholas's migration to the North Pole is due mostly directly to Thomas Nast, an American cartoonist, journalist.
Yeah. Cartoonist usually.
Usually, but
In this case, journalist.
Yeah, who submitted 33 Christmas drawings to Harper's Weekly magazine between 1863 and 1886, one of which featured a village called Santa Clausville, NP. Now, it's important that on this drawing, it never said North Pole. It just said NP. And you want to know why?
Why?
Because back then, in this period, the 1840s and the 50s, the Arctic was literally the most exciting thing hitting the news about exploration, people making visits and treks there, because it was this unknown territory.
Yeah.
So people were so excited. Like, if you were to talk about the Arctic in the news, it was like, oh, you're going to sell a lot of papers. You know what I mean? People are really want to know about this. This is the adventure story of this time. So this artist, and probably got a little bit of intel, he's like, a place that nobody's been to or can get to, that
Seems
must be
convenient for a person who doesn't want to be found.
bingo. So that's when that information got leaked out. And we've learned from a lot of movies that obviously technology's gotten really good and we can make our way to the North Pole now in a lot of ways. There's research centers there. Santa has probably had to get pretty clever on making bunkers underground, making all sorts of really unique facilities that you just can't find via plane or satellite or whatever. He's just got to hide out somehow. Or he has a deal where if he gets seen, he probably, keep this on the down low. Can we just not tell anybody where I am exactly, right?
Yeah. I mean, all we can do is guess.
All we can do is guess.
All we can do is guess because the fact of the matter is he continues to be undiscovered.
Yeah.
And yet every morning on Christmas, people keep getting presents.
They do. It keeps happening. So the spirit keeps going. But that's basically it. That's all. And so from then on, it was just accepted that the North Pole, because then it landed in more and more poems. And so this leads us transitions to the next one. It says, also, reindeer were known for living in the Arctic. And as the night before Christmas had already demonstrated, reindeer were St. Nick's preferred means of transportation. So Night Before Christmas was another poem that came along that started to really help support these journalistic claims.
Very, very much journalistic.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but that brings us on to, I think, a good one, which is reindeer. How do we know that Santa Claus is being pulled in a sleigh in the sky by 8 reindeer?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple of interesting things
And I want to hear
that
this.
you can look at in history, right?
Okay.
So the Greek god Apollo had the sun chariot,
Right.
right? Apollo also was known for giving gifts, which is interesting to have this ancient spiritual being
Right.
who, now in this case, generally it would be pulled by flying horses.
Flying horses.
But the thing that was interesting about Apollo is that Apollo could convert those horses into anything he wanted and did so.
Yeah.
And was the first kind of recorded sign of any flying beast
Wow.
that had horns
Yeah.
and resembled reindeer.
Wow.
So sometimes Apollo would fly along with reindeer
Wow.
and would give gifts,
Yeah.
which I find very fascinating.
Very interesting.
If you
right?
go back to
Right.
kind of the beginning of mythical
Yeah,
history.
this is pre Saint Nick living, and so you go, okay, there is already something.
There's something about this.
Something
There's
about
something
this.
to this, right?
Yeah.
Many years later, not too many years later, but many years
Yeah.
later, Wodan or Odin,
Yes.
up in the frozen north,
Yep.
right?
Good old Odin.
Was god of the Vikings, right? The chief god of the Vikings, who also, by the way, resembles Santa Claus in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
which is very interesting. Bearded,
Yeah, absolutely.
powerful,
And so
large.
you almost begin to wonder, did they just witness this magic? And they,
Yeah,
and
like
they
what-
put it in Odin form.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Did someone see something or
Yeah.
experience something then, and then say, well, that must have been Odin,
Yeah.
right? Who knows?
Yeah.
But what I'll tell you is that Odin rode a flying horse. Now, he didn't have a chariot,
Yeah.
but he did have a horse that would fly. And again, on occasion, it would be converted to essentially a giant goat with horns
There you go.
that would fly through the air.
Yeah.
So it's interesting mythology.
Right. And they're just doing a single horse because probably whoever saw him, it was like off Christmas months. And, every now and then you got to take one of your reindeer out for a spin. You don't need to take the whole sleigh out, but you might want to go for a joyride. Like you got a Corvette in the garage and you want to cruise up Angeles Crest.
Take it for a run.
You got to take it for a spin. So I'm thinking Santa, the spirit of Christmas at this point in time, he's like, oh, he's just done one. Yeah, because it was July.
Yeah.
He was going out. He was cruising.
Come on.
He was feeling like maybe this should be the 4th of July. I don't know. That was,
Well,
that was the
also,
energy.
Have you noticed also with reindeer, in Clement C. Moore's
Yes.
report,
Yes.
there were 8.
Yes.
Dasher, Dancer,
And
Prancer,
that's-
Vixen, Donner, Cupid,
Yes.
Comet, Blitzen.
Yes.
And yet later on in the 30s, 20s?
Yeah. It's 1930s when you're talking about
Rudolph.
the most famous reindeer of all, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Right? A reindeer gets added.
Yes.
Okay, so how many people are there on Earth now who are expecting a present on Christmas? There's a lot,
so
right?
many.
Probably a billion,
Yeah.
maybe, right?
Yeah.
So you are going to need significantly more horsepower or
You need a lot more
reindeer
horsepower.
power to
You gotta
deal
upgrade.
with that
Yeah.
many.
That's a good point. I hadn't
people,
thought of that.
right?
Yeah.
Than you would have had back in Greek times, back
Yeah.
in Viking
Yeah.
times, right? That's another possibility.
Possibility. Yeah. And so
Guess we're guessing on some of this because we don't have reporting on everything.
all we have are these journalists that are posing as authors and writers and storytellers, because to be honest, it's hard to leak this out there because there's a lot of the people who don't hear the bell are in the publication companies and they've lost the magic. And so you come to them and you go like, I know he lives in the North Pole. They're like, get out of here with that nonsense. I don't need to talk about pretend. And so they have to kind of hide through, certain works in order to get the information to us that can hear the bell.
Right.
So it's not an easy thing. We might even find that this episode, lands us in a little hot water.
I'm sure that YouTube will ban this episode.
Oh yeah. Because they'll go, this is just, you're getting too close.
Yeah, I'm sure. But the other thing I want to, it's a theme, and I just want to keep putting it out there, right?
Okay.
That Saint Nicholas, since the beginning of his existence, did not want anyone to know that he was doing this.
That's the key.
Has never wanted anyone to know that he's doing this.
Yeah.
So it's funny because a lot of our movies are about you've got to believe in Santa Claus, I would firmly argue, if you know the man himself, that the misinformation, that the misdirection, that the doubt is not because of us.
Yeah. No.
It's because of St. Nicholas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because Santa Claus does not want us to know that he's doing it.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I was about to say the doubt must come from big concrete.
Could be. I mean, big concrete might be.
I don't know.
He could be using the tools at his disposal to get the big corporations.
Or Big South Pole.
Big South
Pole.
Oh.
Big South. You don't want to mess with Big South.
Don't
Big
mess
South
with
might be
them.
like, we're not talking about Santa. But you're saying, I get what you're saying, which is we have all this media and stuff around him, but really the idea is like, we don't need to point out that I'm doing it.
It's kind of comedic when you think that Father Nicholas became a saint doing things he never admitted to doing.
That is wild.
Right?
It's very true. So the first appearance of Santa's reindeer being documented, okay? So this is in it says, the mythology of the reindeer expanded in the poem The Night Before Christmas, which was written by Professor Clement Clark Moore. Originally written as a story to entertain his daughters, Moore was initially hesitant to submit it to a publisher.
Hello.
Out of concerns, right? So then it got huge, became really popular, and he kind of came out later and he's like, fine, I'm the one who did it. But I thought this was interesting. Many of the names of the reindeer are derived from German. So you have Dasher is actually drawn from the German word for purse maker. Donner and Blitzen, sometimes written as Dunder and Blixen, come from the German phrase for thunder and lightning. These are the 8 original reindeer as they appeared in the poem. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen. So then, like you said, how does all of a sudden Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer come out? Well, in the 1920s, 1930s, they were trying to get more and more people to get excited. And it says basically, soda manufacturer Coca-Cola had found great success in the 1920s by releasing holiday ads that featured jolly old St. Nick drinking their brand of soda. So these are those classic Coca-Cola when you go to a gas station in the middle of nowhere and they've got all these old signs from the 1920s. This is where they had these images, and this is where we start to accept that there was a reindeer named Rudolph, because they allow an artist to draw this character. It says copywriter Robert L. May to reveal this character in coloring books that were given to kids. The character May designed in this drawing, which he had learned elsewhere, worked partly because it came from his personal experience.
His personal
Yep.
experience.
And because he connected to being picked on as a little child and standing out and being special and unique. And so when he heard the story of a reindeer who was, seen as different, and this is always a really good story to share with your children when they feel like they don't fit in or they don't belong at school or they're weird or whatever. Rudolph really shed some light.
Rudolph really shed some light
on being bullied at your school tonight.
So stop being a butthead.
Stop being a butthead. Be nice to your friends.
So anyway, we won't make a song about how you're a real big piece of garbage.
Exactly. So that's the cool story about the reindeer, how it ties to Norse and all that stuff. Yeah.
I love the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I do too.
Story. It really
one of
is
my
a good
favorites.
one because there's a lot of people deal with that.
Yeah.
And I feel like today in particular, just because the amount of anonymity and distance you can have online, it's gotten no better, and nobody is safe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So it is a good, if you're feeling like you're getting picked on or misunderstood, which I think a lot of people are these days, you're not alone, and you don't deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're great.
Agreed.
You're great.
You're great with
Just
your glowing red nose.
And that's the thing I love about Rudolph. Rudolph was odd and different. But you know what's crazy?
What?
Find me a person who isn't odd and different.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We're all unique.
That's how we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, none of our fingerprints are the same.
None of our even the faces that are the same aren't identically the same.
Yeah.
Right? Over time, twins.
Yeah.
You get twins, and as they get older, they look more and more different.
Yeah, it's true.
Because
life just does things differently to all of us.
We are all unique.
Yeah.
We're all different. We all have our own version of a red nose. Everybody's got one. Just some people are better at keeping the mud on the nose to keep it hidden, like Rudolph tried to do for a while.
It's true. Trying to hide it.
But you know what? I recommend you don't.
Yeah.
Fly that freak flag, man.
Yeah, man. Be your Rudolph self.
Be
Go.
you. Be you.
Soar.
Be you, because you're the only one, and that's awesome.
Yeah. Agreed. Oh, they're sending the authorities to shut the podcast down.
They know we're talking about this.
They knew it would happen.
Well, we got to keep going.
Got to keep going.
We got to keep going.
We can't let them stop us.
We are going to expose Saint Nick for what he is.
The generous, loving.
Yes, the generous, loving, giving monster.
The history of Christmas trees. Why do we have a tree right next to Noel right here? The history of Christmas trees goes back to the symbolic use of evergreens in ancient Egypt and Rome, and continues with German tradition of candlelit Christmas trees first brought to America in the 1800s. So this goes all the way back. Noel already said it. He said, the winter solstice, the ancient Egyptians, the Saturnalia, that they were already referencing the tree as this, part of that ceremony. That goes back thousands and thousands of years. So there's a bunch of things here. This article was actually very long, so I'm trying to be quick about it. But if you're wondering how it gets to where we are in the United States, it says most 19th century Americans found Christmas trees an oddity, actually. The first record of one being on display was in the 1830s by the German settlers of Pennsylvania. Although trees had been a tradition in many German homes much earlier, the Pennsylvania German settlements had community trees as early as 1747. So at first, everybody over in this country is like, what's going on with this? Why does this guy got a tree? I don't know about this tree, dude. This is America. I know it's 1690 and 1720, but this is America. And I don't know how I feel about you bringing trees in your house. Trees are meant for outdoors. And everybody was like, and these Germans are like, because it's very nice to have the nice tree in your house.
Yeah, man, that's weird, man. I wouldn't be putting no tree in your house, man.
It's lovely.
Why are you putting candles not? You're gonna light that thing on fire.
It makes me
fire hazard.
It makes me feel the spirit of Christmas.
Yeah, man. Well, you feel that spirit outside, man.
Exactly. There was even backlash, and can you imagine if those folks were not welcoming and finally came around? I mean, putting up the tree, I think we can all agree, is when it's the season.
Well, and
That
also,
tree goes up.
This is another example. I'm going to go back to the Rudolph thing and letting your freak flag fly.
Yeah.
At one time,
Yeah.
putting a Christmas tree in your house and covering it in candles was a weirdo thing.
Yeah, weirdo.
Only weirdos do that.
Freaky Germans in your neighborhood.
Right.
Putting trees up.
But over time, people see it, they get the experience of it, and they say, maybe we could put a tree in our house. And someone goes like, oh, what the heck? My kid wants a tree. Let's put the tree up in there. And then you get the tree up in the house. And then suddenly that person does it, and the people around them are like, well, they put up a tree. I mean, they do smell nice. It's kind of and then it starts to go, and it starts to happen. Yeah. And then suddenly your freaky, weird, odd thing that you're doing becomes something that people like to do.
Yeah.
So don't
bash it.
Don't hide your beauty.
Yeah.
Stop hiding your beauty, people.
Yep. And then this is where it really gets in the mainstream. We had the Royals to thank for this. An illustration from a December 18... Yes, the Royals. An illustration from a December 1848 edition of the Illustrated London News shows Queen Victoria and her family surrounding a Christmas tree.
Prince Albert.
Yes.
Who was from...
Germany.
Germany.
German Prince Albert.
I'm trying to remember the specific area.
He's from this region in Germany.
Coburg or something like that.
Yeah.
He not only hung a Christmas tree from the ground, but he kept with the very, very German tradition of hanging one upside down.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, there was a tradition in Germany where you would hang trees upside down from the ceiling, and he did indeed do so in
that's amazing.
Buckingham Palace.
Yeah. So this is once they see this German prince bring this to London. It's on the cover of a magazine. This is where everybody's like, all those people that were like, I don't know about that, are like, all right, it's cool. We'll do it now. Yeah.
All right, man.
So, yeah, all right, man.
Queen of England, you're going to do it now.
Yeah.
You're good enough for Queen of England. It's good enough for me.
Good enough for me. So it says by around the 1890s, Christmas ornaments were arriving from Germany, and Christmas tree popularity was on the rise around the U.S. It was noted that Europeans used small trees about 4 feet in height, while Americans liked their Christmas trees
like our trucks.
Reach from floor to ceiling. Like everybody over in Europe has these little trees, and the Americans are like, how do I get my hands on an 18-foot tree? I need to have the biggest one.
Do you remember the movie Christmas Vacation? The classic.
It's an absolute classic. I not only know and love it, but I know it is a special movie to Noel, and it has become a ceremonious movie that we watch every year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's my favorite Christmas movie. It's so good. It's so funny.
Yeah.
When they go out to get their Christmas tree, and then Russ looks at the tree and he says, "Dad, that thing wouldn't fit in our yard." And what does Clark say? It's not going in our yard, Russ. It's going in our living room.
It's so good. It's so good. Oh, it's so good. And last but not least, after the Christmas trees, we'll get to the stocking. This one's actually pretty short because it's one of those things that this is from the Smithsonian. The
Smithsonian. We know about them. They know about us.
Yeah, they know about us. And when I read it,
I wonder if they'll put this one in the
they just
files.
might. They just
you
might.
think so? Because it's pretty controversial.
It is controversial. So a lot of things will have to change.
Let's see.
But in the Smithsonian, this is funny because the research isn't that deep. This is another one of those ones where a story has been passed to a story, but the story that's told just sounds like a retelling of Saint Nick. It's just literally like that's how it got passed, like the game of telephone, like where you whisper it from one year to the next. Stockings are literally, it says, the most popular legend as to why stockings are hung at Christmas goes something like this. A recently widowed man and father of 3 girls was having a tough time making ends meet. Even though his daughters were beautiful, he worried that their impoverished status would make it impossible for them to marry. St. Nicholas was wandering through town where the man lived and heard villagers discussing that family's plight. He wanted to help, but knew the man would refuse any kind of charity directly. Instead, one night, he slid down the chimney of the family's house and filled the girls' recently laundered stockings, which happened to be drying by the fire, with gold coins. And then he disappeared. So that is the legend, which is very close
to what actually happened.
So here we have this story that's told, but it just ties, here's a story being told about stockings back in the 1800s, but it's just them telling a revised version of what St. Nick
story
was
from 1,000 years earlier.
From 1,000 years earlier. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
So then that's how it became a thing to hang a stocking. And so for some, the ritual is translated into hanging a nondescript sock pulled from dad's drawer. For others, it's meant as a personalized, decorated things. But anyway, that's how, it came to be. But I don't know. This was an interesting thing. I grew up in a household that had a lot of really, long history Christmas traditions. One of them being I always have an orange in my stocking. Did you guys grow up with that tradition?
No.
It's always an orange in my stocking, which I don't know. This could be Santa. This could be my parents carrying on something and adding whatever's left by Santa. But it says, oranges tend to wind up in Christmas stockings. Ever wonder why? Some say it's from a time when fresh fruit was more difficult to come by and finding an orange in your stocking was a huge treat. But a different version of that beautiful daughter's distraught father legend swaps the gold coins left by St. Nick with 3 gold balls left in each stocking. Understandably, the solid gold balls tradition isn't very easy to replicate. That's why their citrus lookalikes have found their way into stockings alongside tchotchkes and baubles, but hopefully not coal.
Yeah, and interesting thing about coal is another new, very recently discovered story. This is going to probably piss off a lot of parents.
Okay.
But I got to say it because it's just the truth.
It's just the truth. Okay.
It's just the truth.
We're here to bring the truth.
Yeah. So have you ever wondered, kids, how it is that you may have made a mistake or two, you may have done some things wrong, and yet somehow, despite your worry that maybe you're not going to get the presents for Christmas, you still get the presents for Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were kids, some kids got coal. It happened.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Right now, and this is frustrating to parents because I think a lot of parents love to say Santa's going to give you coal if you don't.
Right.
If you don't shape up and act well,
You're gonna get coal.
But the story of Santa's brother, Frederick, came out just 10 or so years ago. Fascinating story.
Yeah.
Also documented in film form.
Okay.
Very interesting. Worth a watch.
Okay.
But essentially, in that story, you discover why it is that children, there is no longer
Coal.
a naughty and nice list.
Oh, really?
It's just a nice list.
Just a nice list. Oh,
And it's a really good story. And I
Okay.
recommend you watch it. It's a story. It's called Fred Claus.
Okay.
And I don't want to spoil it for people.
I've actually never seen it.
I don't want to spoil it for people, but it is a Christmas movie that tells a really fascinating story that explains a question that I think a lot of kids have had in their mind, which is like, boy, I really blew a couple things this year, and I was worried about it.
Yeah.
And I still got it. There's a reason why,
Okay.
and it's beautiful.
Watch that documentary, guys.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Fred Claus.
Fred Claus.
I highly recommend it.
There was one other funny thing that I wanted to say before we wrap things up, but I thought this was great. The guy who was sharing the story about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, he also had some intel that has never really taken off, and I want to share this as well. It said, he tried to attempt to introduce members of Rudolph's family, including a brother named Rusty and a son named Robbie. They never really got famous. So I'm here to tell you that brother Rusty and son Robbie, the reindeer, also are, historically accurate. It's just nobody really ever calls them out. So
Yeah, which happens, man.
it happens.
Some people get lost in history. It's
Robbie
so
and
tough.
Rusty, we acknowledge you here on the Biofriendly
It's so
Podcast.
tough when things are being kept a secret.
Yeah.
And you can't get verification from the source.
Yeah.
It's so difficult.
Yeah.
So we do our best with the
Yeah.
data we have to try to explain exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's essentially this is the earth shattering tale of Saint Nick.
I got one more.
You do? You got
one
another
more
one?
thing. I got a closing note.
Bring it.
About the reality of Santa Claus.
Okay.
For people who are struggling to hear the bell.
Okay.
Okay. So we've now established that there's a lot of different possibilities as to why we think Santa does things the way that Santa does things. We don't know.
Right.
We just don't know. The only thing that we have written down historically that we know is 100% accurate is that there was absolutely a St. Nicholas.
Yep.
That is true. And that St. Nicholas gave gifts secretly. Mm-hmm. And that today, right now, people get Christmas presents every year on Christmas morning.
Yep.
So I would submit to you, and I want you to think about this for a minute. If there had never been a Saint Nicholas, if there had never been a Christmas spirit, if there had never been any of this, could there have been a day where every year, no matter what, no matter the weather, no matter the economy, no matter the difficulty, no matter what, that everybody gets a present on a morning?
Yeah.
It's inconceivable.
Yeah. That's crazy, right?
Think about on let's pick it August 14th.
Right? Yeah.
Has everybody ever gotten a present at the same day on August 14th?
No, they haven't.
No,
No.
they haven't.
No. So,
The mechanics of this are unknown. It is intended to be a secret because the person who caused this to happen did not want you to know that they caused it to happen.
that's true.
But somebody caused this to happen. How it's happening can be up to you.
Yeah.
You can decide yourself how on earth this is happening, how this absurdly impossible thing of everybody getting a present on the same day, no matter what,
Yep.
every year. But that thing is happening because of the existence of a person and the existence of an event. So if you ever tell me that Santa Claus isn't real, you're a liar.
That's right. He will call you to your face.
You're a liar
You're a liar.
because it's happening.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
And I don't care about the mechanics of it. I don't care about if it happens by reindeer. I don't know.
yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's what I choose to believe because that's the stories I've been told.
Yeah.
If it happens on a spaceship, if it happens by holographic, I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know.
Teleportation.
I don't know, and I don't care.
All I care about
All
is...
I care about is it keeps happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah.
Without fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah. And there's this unbelievable feeling that you get. You know, it's illustrated in The Grinch. That even on Christmas mornings, you know, where the Grinch is like, I'm going to make all these people wake up without their gifts and without their presents and all that stuff. The spirit is undefeatable. You can't stop it. It's literally something that if you were to wake up and you didn't have a doggone thing, everybody on Christmas morning feels this sense of togetherness and like we just want to help each other and put aside our differences. And never before has there been a more important time than right now for us to put aside our differences and just say, Merry Christmas,
And
Happy Holidays.
those who's sang anyway.
Yeah.
And what happened to the Grinch?
His heart grew 10 times or something.
3 sizes.
3 sizes.
3
Yes.
sizes.
Yeah, 3 sizes. Because he heard them all singing and being happy together, even though they didn't have gifts, because they felt that spirit that's been around for
And on that
long
day,
as we can.
on that day, it was the Grinch who brought them their presents.
That's right. Because that was how it worked.
It wasn't Santa that day because
Yeah.
the presents that Santa left were stolen.
By a Grinch.
That day, the presents were given by the Grinch, but the presents arrived.
Yeah, they did. They got there anyway. So that is the origin story of Santa Claus. Santa Claus.
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. Santa Claus.
St. Nicholas.
So that has been so fun. Did you learn a bunch of stuff about the history of
did.
Santa?
That was beautiful.
Do you hear the bell?
Yeah, I hear the bell. Oh, I always heard the bell.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
I
yeah.
did.
I know. I knew.
love Christmas.
Yeah, I knew we were a bunch of bell hearers.
Yeah, of course
It's
we
a
are.
group of bell hearers.
Yes, we are.
So that's it. That's it. There's, obviously there's tons more history around this that we could get into, but we figured that's a nice little glimpse. So with that, we have been your beacon of light in a gloomy environment.
Jacob's brain is constantly rebuilding itself.
Don't be environmentally gimmicky.
This guy's got bubbles.
And featuring Todd Water Socks.
Take the W and get on with it.
We assume on this show, ghosts are sexy. Beavers are great.
We know microns.
Yeah! I know those last ones are a rough equivalent, probably, but we did it.
Is there another one? Did we miss one?
No,
Oh,
because remember,
yes,
we're
okay.
banking, so we.
Well, that hasn't happened yet.
Yes, that hasn't happened yet.
See how we play with time and
Play
the
with time,
Biofriendly
yeah.
Podcast?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this will happen. This happens before
Before that happened.
that one happens. ones. Yes.
Well, there was 2. That's why I'm like.
Yes. Oh, of course. Of course you're confused. We've been doing so many podcasts, you wouldn't even be able to know which day it is.
Yes.
For Pete's sake.
Yeah.
So, but before we leave, Veronica, what would you like to say?
Have a jolly time.
Yeah.
It's the Biofriendly Podcast. It's the Biofriendly Podcast.